perspective. And I say, is it too much to ask for both?
Todd,
I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew.
in association with the SomaCal Media Network.
Brilliant!
Now, here's your host, Ryan Buffett.
Let's go! Yes, this is the Sports Buzz, broadcast live via the Ustream, part of the SomaCal Media Network. Hope everyone had a great and happy and safe Thanksgiving Day and Thanksgiving weekend. Glad you're able to join us. I am Ryan Bonifant, joined by the man who has reached the Boston since the year 1977, Rock Chalk, Jayhawk all the way. It's Todd Buono.
What's going on, Ryan?
How are things in the world of Buono? How's the Buono Thanksgiving this year?
The Buono Thanksgiving was very nice. I can't complain at all. The apple pie was delicious. Always does a great job with that.
Gotta love the apple pie.
Other than that, Ryan, I'm just like the duct tape beat-up punching bag at your local fitness facility. I'm back for more.
Indeed, very much so. Well, I don't think the Lions are going to want anymore after the throttling they took.
They were just resting.
Oh, well, really?
They were getting ready for the Colts.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We're waiting for the big.
You haven't known that's a new style of defense they play.
No, really.
It's prevent.
Just open up the floodgates.
It's a new kind of prevent D.
Open up the floodgates and let Chris Johnson just run all over you.
Kinda. It's a confusionary tactic.
Oh.
Because, Chris Johnson likes to play off contact, so if you don't touch him, maybe he'll... I don't know.
You can join us here, 407.
I don't know.
So I don't know where you were going with that either. 407-788-0479. That's the phone number to reach us if you want to get in. A lot of NFL to talk about from Thanksgiving Day. Some statements that were made. Also, college football. Some big games this past weekend, and one game that we're going to start off the show with by talking about, obviously, Oklahoma State, over 100.
Oh, I thought we were still going with the border war.
No, well, you know what? Hey, that was, congrats to Kansas on that.
Thank you.
Todd Reesing was able to make that throw to the guy who's a backup quarterback.
Meyer,
yeah, thank you.
Jerry Meyer.
Hey, how impressive was Kansas in that game?
I got me bragging rights.
Unfortunately, Missouri had already punched their way into the Big 12 championship by winning the North Division 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's okay.
But still, it's a good statement. And 7-5 for Kansas, considering how tough the schedule was this year compared to last year. Kansas really wasn't in blowouts. They competed in every game. Some games, like Oklahoma, the talent was a lot more superior for the Sooners than what Kansas had. Mm-hmm. But Kansas was in most of those games this year. And, I remember when they were here in Tampa, they had a last-second loss to USF. But, overall, a constructive, good year
I'm
for Kansas.
I'm content with the season, except for the USF loss and the Nebraska loss. But what can you do? Yeah. Content with it. But carry on.
But, yeah, a good way to end the year for Kansas. Yes. And, maybe get some bragging rights to get into a bigger bowl for the Jayhawks. You never know. It's not going to be an Orange Bowl like it was last year, but hey,
Hey, a bowl. I'll take a bowl. We're Kansas. I'll take a bowl.
But the game of the week was in Stillwater, where it was Oklahoma taking on Oklahoma State. Over 100 points was scored in that game. Over 100 points, the most ever in that rivalry between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. And of course, they released the BCS standings early, I guess, to go ahead
for last week.
Yeah, especially since that was released at like 9 o'clock last night. But they go ahead and release it now. And Oklahoma, somehow, some way, was able to do enough to convince the voters and convince the pollsters to put them ahead of Texas. So now Oklahoma is in the Big 12 championship against Missouri. And, I was kind of saying it last week. I would kind of be a little upset with Oklahoma leapfrogging Texas because the game to me was already proven when Texas defeated Oklahoma on a neutral field in Dallas, 45-35. No fluke plays, nothing like that. It was Texas winning that game over Oklahoma. And you remember what everyone was saying about Texas, that this was a team now, if they were able to get through the gauntlet, they would have been number one and carried out the rest of the year. They were 1 second away from running that gauntlet. Remember, they had convincing wins over Missouri They were able to hold off Oklahoma State, and then on a fluke play lost to Texas Tech when Crabtree was able to split the two defenders for Texas and was able to score a touchdown to put Texas Tech ahead of the Longhorns. But to me, I don't like the idea. I first off didn't like the idea that the BCS was going to decide who was going to be going into the Big 12 championship. Because originally when the BCS was created, it was created to decide who was number 1 and who was number 2. Mm-hmm. Now it's deciding who goes into conference championships. And to me, I'm not a real big fan of that because to me, I thought it was already proven that Texas was a better team than Oklahoma and Texas Tech. I mean, even though Texas did lose to Texas Tech, again, on a last-second fluke play where they were in Lubbock as well. So to me, I thought Texas, in my opinion, should have been representing the Big 12 South in the Big 12 championship. But, hey, Oklahoma did enough the last 2 weeks, put over 60 points on the board against Oklahoma State, was able to beat Texas Tech very soundly. So, it is what it is.
It's interesting. As far as the tiebreaker goes, I think that's something that needs to be pointed back more towards the Big 12. I don't know what the resolution is there, but I think maybe they do need to find a resolution. I mean, it is going to be that rare occasion when you do have a three-way tie. It's not going to happen like that every year, but it did happen this way this year, and I agree, Ryan. It's a little tough when it comes down to a BCS ranking to decide who goes on and plays that game, especially when you have the scenario that you have. As far as Oklahoma leaping Texas, there's a number of things you can look at. Obviously, there's the old adage, better to lose early than to lose late. But you still have to look that Texas had the head-to-head victory, and I think that's the tough thing. That's going to be the point that is debated over and over again, and rightfully so. It was on a neutral site. Yes, you could. I heard somebody making the argument today that the last 3 weeks, Oklahoma has put up 60 points. That's great. That's impressive. But they also gave up 41 points to Oklahoma State yesterday, and I realized, they still won the game, and that's the only thing. Oklahoma's playing good, and Texas is playing good, and it's a shame that this is the way it was decided, and I think Texas has every right to gripe. But you know what? It is what it is now, and it's going to be Oklahoma taking on Missouri.
Now, let's picture this, though. And I know this is a speculation. There's still one more week of college football to go with. We still have the Big 12 championship. We also have the SEC championship, which we'll talk about a little later. How big of statements that Alabama and Florida made this past weekend against their rivals. I mean, just the fact that Alabama slapped around Auburn the way they did. I mean, right out of the gates was impressive to me, but we'll talk about that a little later. And let's talk about the game itself, though. Oklahoma State. I mean, until the final 5 minutes of that game, no punts since the first quarter from either team. Zach Robinson looked like he was trying to lobby himself into being a Heisman Trophy candidate with the way he was playing, doing it on both assets of a quarterback with his arm and his leg for Oklahoma State. But, overall, how impressed were you with Zach Robinson? Sam Bradford got his. 30 for 44, 370, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. But, how impressive was Zach Robinson to you? Because, remember, this is a kid who just stepped into the quarterback position last year. This is his first year starting as a junior for the Cowboys. How impressive was Zach Robinson to you last night?
Very impressed with Zach Robinson, and there was a little part of me, honestly, last night that was pulling for Oklahoma State because I'm impressed with the season that they've had. I think they've had a great season. So close. They came so close to defeating Missouri. They lost to Missouri, right? In a close game, I think.
I think they actually beat.
Did they beat Missouri? Okay, that's it. Okay, Missouri. They beat Missouri. They played all the big dogs, and they played great defense when they played them, and that was.
Yeah, they did beat Missouri 28-23 on October 11th, and that was at Missouri too.
So that was kind of, if you guys remember back when we had the preseason show, I had said to watch Oklahoma State, and that was kind of it was actually that Missouri game when I started to realize, okay, they are kind of what I thought they would be.